That's awesome. Does that ring true for any of you? Yeah, with kids? Oh, man. Did it give you a little bit of anxiety? A little bit? Just kind of, okay, yeah, no. I'm done. I'm good. And so I am very excited, however, that there are many, many couples who are going to continue to have babies in our church because I love it. I love it. As long as it's not me. I will enjoy God's blessing on your life. I'm very excited about today. We're closing out our series, Him and Her, and it's been very, very, very awesome. I have enjoyed this series so much, and as I've prepared for it, as I've gotten ready and studied all these different things, and kind of dived into to this topic of relationship and marriage. God has done some awesome things in my life and my marriage as well, and so I'm excited, and I hope my prayer is that He's done the same for you, and that throughout these weeks that you've been able to apply some of the things we've been learning and some of the verses. It's difficult because when you talk about marriage, we always try and find a new angle or something new, a new spin, and so it's tough kind of saying, hey, well, we talk about marriage all this time, but God, give me something fresh, something new, something we haven't seen before. And I don't know about you, but it's been fresh for me, and I've loved preaching it. So I hope that you've enjoyed hearing it. I'm having some technical difficulties with my iPad right now. Anybody know my password? Pastor Rudy is out of town this weekend, and he's on a well-deserved little vacation that we were able to send him on in Alaska. So he's a little chilly. I don't know. What's the weather like right now in Alaska? It's spring in Alaska. It's cold all the time, isn't it? Is that? Yeah, so you pray for them as they enjoy, as they rest up, that they recharge the batteries and get back ready to rock and roll. So we'll be jealous of them for a little bit, and then they'll be back. So just a quick promo for you to hang on to, and Natalie's going to say something later on about it. But in a couple of weeks, we're launching our summer series. Yeah, that's right, summer series. I know, it's crazy, right? But it's going to be very, very exciting. We call this series Gone Fishing. Gone Fishing. It's a study in the book of Jonah. So it'll be a good time. Pastor will be back, and he'll kick off that series in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun, so mark that down. You don't want to miss that as we get that started as well. Listen, today we're diving in, and we're closing out our series on relationships. And so I want to see if how much you remember of the last few weeks. Let me just say first, before I get started, that I heard from reliable sources that last week it was incredible that Danny just brought it home and, as we say in the South, shucked the corn and took care of business. And he brought an amazing, amazing message. When you guys say thanks to Danny for doing that, yeah, you can clap. It's good. Yep. If you're going to commit to it, don't give me a golf clap. Come on. He deserves a lot better than that. So it's good for me to know. It makes me very excited to know that that when I leave town, everything does not fall apart. As a matter of fact, the idea that I got was, you don't need to come back. So do just fine without me. God is going to do His thing here at New Dawn, whether we're here or not. So He's going to continue to do it, and I'm very proud and I'm glad to have Danny do that as well. So our key verse for this series was found in the book of John, and it's something that Jesus said about relationships specifically. And what we did was we took what Jesus said about relationships and we apply it to possibly the most important relationship on earth, which is a marriage relationship. The very first institution founded by God was marriage, was family. And so what Jesus said about relationships should especially be applied specifically to marriage above all. And so everything that we've taken has been kind of based off of that. And it says simply this, John 13:34, a new command I give you, love one another, which wasn't new. But then he keeps going. He says, as I have loved you, so you must love one another. Now that part blew everybody away because Jesus raised the bar on what it meant to love someone in a relationship. He raised it to a new level of relational love. He set a new standard for what it looks like to love somebody in a relationship. And so specifically, we are applying this to marriage because it's so absolutely relevant in this context. Love one another as He has loved you. And we've learned a lot of different things. The first week, we discovered that we all have a box. Remember the box? The box of our hopes and dreams and desires, and we fill up that box throughout our lifetime. And then all of these expectations, we have all of these things we dream of for our life and our marriage. And then when we get married, we go to this person that we marry and said, here is my box. Now I count on you to fulfill it, right? The problem is that your spouse does not receive a box of hopes and dreams and desires. They receive a box of what? Remember? Expectations, that's right. Expectations. And vice versa. And so you give them a box of expectations, they give you their box of expectations, and neither of you meet each other's expectations. And so what happens in a relationship of expectation is it becomes a debt and debtor relationship. It becomes a situation of you owe me this. You owe me something. This is what we agreed to when we said I do. Now you owe me this. Right? And it's a debt-debtor relationship. And it becomes a tug of war. And in a debt and debtor relationship, the person who is the best negotiator wins, don't they? The one who can out-talk the other one, ultimately somebody's got to give in. The problem is that when I win in marriage, we loses. When I win, we loses in marriage, right? And so nobody wins, even when you win in marriage. Because why? Because you owe me something, and I deserve for you to deliver on my box of hopes, dreams, and desires. Thank you very much. And we also remember that we blew it all away when we discovered this new verse, not a new verse, very old verse in a new context. Remember? Very, 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 very interesting verse. Controversial to say the least. Women, submit yourselves to your husbands. Remember that whole spiel? Yeah. And we're like, oh, no. And what did we discover? When we went down and looked down and unpacked it to the Greek root, the original Greek manuscript, what did it say? The submission is mutual, right? It's not just women submit to husbands, it's both and. Submission is mutual. Some of the guys are saying, I'm still struggling with that one. We'll have to work, That's fine. And then we also talked about the tug of war, the tension of marriage. When it's expectation, it's like a tug of war. And the step, what you have to do to step forward was what? You got to drop the rope. You got to drop the rope first. First, it should be a competition to see who can drop the rope first. That's the first step in stepping out and moving on in your marriage. And not moving on, moving forward in your marriage, not moving on. That sounded really bad. We're moving on, we're moving forward, not on. Let's just establish that right now. That went in a whole different direction. And happy couples know the secret, right, to marriage. And they know the answer to the question. And the question is, what do they owe me? What does she owe me? What does he owe me? And what do happy couples know? What's the answer? Absolutely nothing. Happy couples live with the principle that I owe you everything, but you owe me nothing in return. I owe you everything. You owe me everything. You just leave it here just in case. We're all family here. We don't mind. Starts to break up. I'll just go to this one. It's all good. I owe you everything. You owe me nothing. And that's what happy couples know. So here's the big question, though. Through the whole series, we got this box, expectation. You're not supposed to give it to your spouse. We figured that out. And now we got the box. And the big question is this. And I think my wife asked me after the second week. She goes, well, so what do you do with your box? Do you remember asking me that? I don't even know. I was like, it's a great question. So I don't give my box to my spouse. She's not supposed to handle it. He's not supposed to carry it. So I got my box now. So what do I do with my box? I've got this big box of my hopes and my dreams and my expectations, or my desires, And so what do I do with it? If my spouse isn't supposed to carry it, then I've got the box. And we talked about how the box isn't going anywhere. You can't hide it in the attic. You can't put it in the shed. It's there. It doesn't go. You can't sell it in a garage sale. It's there forever. You got the box, and it's full of all these things that you got to do something with. So what do you do with the box? Would you like to find out? I'm so glad. Let's do it together. We're going to find out what we're going to do with our box today. So what are the alternatives? I mean, I guess we could ignore it. You could just kind of push it aside and pretend like it's not there, pretend like it never happened. But that doesn't really work. Let's be honest. That doesn't work because in the end, what's going to happen? We're going to end up frustrated. We're going to end up angry, right? We're going to end up, it's always there. So you can't ignore it. It doesn't go away. You could busy yourself with other things, right? You could just occupy your time solving the world's problems, solving your spouse's box, figuring that out, and there's my box, whatever. But occupy. But that ends up not working either because at the end of the day, you're going to come back to the box, and you got to deal with it. It's simple. What's the other alternative? Well, I guess you could find someone new. Right? If the spouse that you have is not fulfilling what your box needs to be fulfilled, if it's not fulfilling your dreams, it's not, it's not dealing with all the things that you need dealt with, you can find somebody else. We talk about that as well. That doesn't really work out either, does it? Because why? Because wherever you go, there you are. That means that when you pack up and go and find somebody else, your box goes with you. Right? So all of these things that your spouse was not fulfilling, you're taking to your next relationship. And what are you going to do? You're going to expect the same thing from that person. You're going to give them a box and say, hey, maybe you can fulfill. Because let's be honest, no one goes and looks for somebody else because of their desperate need to fill somebody else's needs. I mean, oh man, I wish that I could realize my spouse's dreams. She just won't let me. So I got to go find somebody. I'm going to go find somebody else that will let me fulfill their dreams for them. Right? No one looks for somebody else to do that. Why do people seek other people in a relationship? Why do they go outside marriage? Because something is not getting taken care of, and they're looking elsewhere to get it taken care of, right? Maybe the next one will be able to do something about my box. But it never happens because your box goes with you. You don't leave your box behind. At the end of the day, the only thing you go after is something for you. Not for them. And that is the wrong foundation for any relationship. No good relationship is built off of me or I. It's the other way around. So that's not an alternative. So what do we do then? If we can't ignore it, can't, busy ourselves, well, it doesn't make any sense to leave because it's going with us. So what are we going to do? Well, in the New Testament, Apostle Peter shed some light on what we are to do with our box. And you got to understand something about Peter. Peter was a guy who walked with Jesus. He was friends with Jesus. He knew him intimately, and he was with him all the time for 3 years approximately. And so he knew him very, very well, sat under his teaching, was his disciple. Peter knew Jesus personally very, very well. And so Peter dives into this also based off of what Jesus taught. Peter is applying it directly to circumstances. And we're going to take what Peter says, and we're going to unpack it a little bit, and we're going to tie it into directly what we are to do with our box. You with me so far? Good? Yes? Let's go. 1 Peter chapter 5. In verse 5 it says this. All of you, who? That's right. All of you clothe or put on. Clothe yourselves with humility toward one another. All of you clothe yourselves with humility. It's kind of the same thing Paul was talking about, but he's using different terminologies and a different application. So he's taking what Jesus taught and he's giving a different spin to what was going on. So he says, all of you, he doesn't talk about the submission thing necessarily specifically, but he says, all of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another. So the first thing Peter's talking about, listen, when it comes to your box, relationally, in marriage, you have to approach it with humility. Humility. And it's an interesting word because I did this test in the first service, so I'm going to do this right now, and I want you to be totally, brutally honest with me. We're in church. You can't lie, okay? So here it is. Answer this question. Raise your hand if you would consider yourself a humble person. Look around. Exactly. I guess you figure if you raise your hand, you're disqualified, right, from being humble. Is that? You get a humble award, and then you get taken away for showcasing it. Right. No one thinks of themselves as being a humble person. Why is that? Well, because compared to somebody else, I'm not that humble. Compared to God, I'm not that humble, right? Why do we not consider ourselves a humble person? I'll tell you why. Because you know you. You know you, don't you? And you know that given the right circumstances, you will react in a way that's not really humble. And given the right circumstances, you might enjoy the limelight more than you should probably. Or given the right circumstances, you enjoy a good pat on the back for your accomplishments. And at the end of the day, those things aren't particularly bad. I'm just saying that within ourselves, as we internalize, as we look in the mirror, we're going, I don't feel humble. I don't feel like a humble person. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I could do to think of myself as a humble person. Because I know me. And I know that what goes on up here doesn't make me a humble person. Because let's face it, deep down inside, I know I'm a better driver than most people. This food is really good, but inside me, mine's way better. Mine's way better. Because you know, and those things, those things are probably true, but none of us think of ourselves as a humble person. It's amazing. First service as well. Crickets. We're like, I'm not going to raise my hand because I'm so humble and I'm proud of it, right? So how do you become humble? If we don't consider ourselves humble, how do you become humble? If Peter says, clothe yourselves in humility toward one another, what does that look like? First of all, if that's the basis of how do I approach my marriage and my box of stuff, well, what does that even look like? It's quite simple when it comes to humility, really. Just do what a humble person does. And this seems simple, doesn't it? But have you ever asked yourself, what would a humble person do? I bet you never asked yourself that, have you? Probably not. I never did. So why don't you say it with me? What would a humble person do? Say it again. You get it. What would? Right. What would a humble person do? Just do that. In any given circumstance, any situation, do what a humble person would do. And here's what happened. Here's what will happen when it comes to humility. If you do what a humble person would do, guess what happens? You will be a humble person. When it comes to humility, it's not internal. You say, but yeah, I know me though, and I don't feel humble. Now, I know that my thoughts are not humble thoughts. Yes, but the world does not see your thoughts. They see your actions. And actions speak way louder than words even. But thoughts, the world has no idea what you're thinking. They see what you do. So if you want to be humble, you simply have to react humbly. Do what a humble person would do. So if I were a humble person, what would I do? And do that. This seems something you're going like, I don't know. This is crazy. I don't know. This sounds weird. Whatever. What would a humble person do? Humble is as humble does, would say Forrest Gump. Right? If you act humbly, you are humble. That's how it is. And Peter says, clothe yourself with humility. Do as a humble person does. Act humbly. If you react humbly, you'll be humble. Why? Why? Well, Peter tells us on the rest of the part of verse 5. He says, God opposes the proud. Well, there's that, right? And shows favor. A better word is grace to the humble. So if we're to approach our marriage in our box of stuff with humility, and humility is the first course of action, we see God opposes the proud. God opposes the proud. Now, it could go both ways. If I said, how many of you think you're proud? Well, of course I'm proud. I'm not humble. You got to raise your hand now. But I won't do that because it kind of creates a weird tension. Because I don't want you to admit you're proud. We see pride. A lot of people see pride in different ways. Like, I'm proud to be an American, right? That's a different kind of pride that we feel of our country. And as your pride for your children, it's not what I'm talking about. It's not the pride I'm talking about. I think you know the pride I'm talking about. No one is attracted to a proud person, are you? That person that lives like they know that they are better than everyone else in the room. Like they know it, and it shows. And they look down on everybody. And whatever story you have, they have one to top it. You know that guy? And wherever you've been, they've been farther. Right? And whatever you've eaten, they've eaten more. Like it doesn't stop. And they know it, and they act like it, and they live like it. Like, yeah, I'm the last glass of water in the desert. So, no one. I don't like those people. I don't like being around those people, and I let alone don't. I never want to be those people. But we all default to that. Did you know that? It's in our nature. It's in our nature to be proud. It's in our nature to want to be the king. Everybody wants to be the king. It's in our human nature to build up ourselves. It's in our nature. We default back to that characteristic of pride. So, if that's our human default, and God opposes that, but He gives grace and favor to humility, and humility is the key to our marriage. It means we've got to take a course of action that leads us to humility. It means it cannot go unchecked. This area of our life, this area of our marriage cannot go left unchecked. We've got to do some business. We've got to do some maintenance on this part of our life, this part of our marriage, because it all hinges on this. And as you'll see in just a few minutes as we break this down, God resists the proud. Like He pushes back. He steps away. He rejects the proud. I don't want to be in that boat. Do you? But I find myself, because I know me, I find myself continually defaulting back to those reactions, right? To those thoughts. It's because it's natural. It's human nature. So you can't just let it go. A humble person isn't just by default humble. Humble person is the person who acts and reacts humbly and maintains it. It takes effort to do it. So you gotta do it on purpose. It's a conscious choice to act humbly. And it's not easy, by the way, to be humble. Because at the end of the day, I deserve better than this. That's not right. I'm not going to, you know what, I'll put up with a lot, but I'm not going to get pushed around. I'm not going to get mistreated. Now, don't confuse. Humility is not given into abuse, all right? Humility is not just cowering and being the victim. That's not humility. That's something else. But we all have that limit to where we're like, no. I deserve better. Don't we? Let's be honest. When it comes down to it, there is that line that we won't cross, that humility line. And we all like to be recognized, and we all like to be first, and that's the way we are. It takes work. It takes work. And God, He says, humility is what God wants to show favor. into your life. If you want God to show favor in your marriage, humility is the key. Humility is an invitation for God to come into your marriage and to do something extraordinary. Humility invites God into your life and into your relationship. Humility is the key. It's an invitation for God to show up and for God to pour out his favor on your marriage and on your life. Humility. And it doesn't come natural to any of us. We all have to work for it. It invites God. Listen to what Peter says in verse 6. He says, humble yourselves, very next verse, humble yourselves therefore under God's mighty hand. I mean, he's not saying God's mighty hand, God's not punishing, but the reference here, it kind of explains, kind of paints the picture of God's protective hand or under his authority, right? So it's kind of that idea. Humble yourself before God's protection and authority of who God is. It's an acknowledgement of who you are standing in front of an almighty God. It's humility. Humble yourselves under God's mighty hand. And then it goes on to say that he, who? God, may lift you up in due time. I want you to mark that. If you're into underlining your Bible, underline that part that says, lift you up. Because he's telling us what the result is of someone who will humble himself before God in their life and in their marriage. That God, Peter says, is going to lift you up. There's another version that says God will exalt you, which sounds strange to me because we exalt God for who he is, right? God is worthy of that. He deserves that. We don't. And so the fact that Peter alludes to the fact that God may exalt or lift up in an act of, pushing up, that sounds crazy to me. But he says, listen, if you humble yourself, if you put yourself down before God, then God will lift you up before men. That's what Peter is saying. If you humble yourself before God, God will lift you up before men. Humble yourselves. By acting in humility, you are setting yourself up for God to do something incredible in your life and in your marriage. Humility. And this principle it goes across all of life, all of Christian life, and especially in this context of marriage. In seeking God's grace, God's favor, God's blessing on your marriage, you first have to put yourself in a position to receive God's favor. In other words, when Peter says God opposes the proud, but he gives favor to the humble, he's saying, listen, not just anybody can receive God's favor. You have to put yourself in a position for God, in order for God to pour out his favor and grace on you and on your marriage. You got to get in position. Turn to your neighbor and say, get in position. Oh, you didn't mean that. You got to get in position. You got to put yourself in position in order for God to favor your marriage and your life. Do what a humble person would do. And here's where it gets crazy. So, all right, that principle makes sense, I guess. But now if you apply it, however, to the situations that we struggle with, it's where it kind of gets hairy a little bit. Like when you apply that principle to the conflict in your marriage, when you get into a fight, when you know you're right, it is not easy to humble yourself at that point, is it? Because you know you're right. Or when you're feeling depressed, or when you're feeling like someone betrayed you, when you're angry, when you're upset, it's not so easy. It's not so easy to be humble. It just isn't, because it's not our natural reaction. As a human, it's within our nature to prove our point, to stand up for ourselves, for what we know is right. To prove my point. It's not within our nature to act in humility. And it really, the rubber meets the road in those moments in our marriage, and that there's conflict. And we always think we're right, because you don't go into conflict thinking you're wrong, unless you're a pseudo-masochist, right? I love pain. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. No. You always think you're right. Otherwise, you wouldn't argue about it, would you? And it's hard. It's not easy to be humble in those moments. This is in those moments when you feel cheated, when you feel like your spouse's hopes and dreams are being lived out and it's a party in his box every day, but your box is being neglected and you feel cheated, you feel like you're getting ignored, your box is ignored by your spouse, and you're going, what's going on? In those moments, do what a humble person would do. Not so easy now, is it? He says that he may lift you up. He may lift you up. And if you do this, Peter says, if you do this, you will put yourself in a place when the time is right, when God's time is right, he will lift you up. He will lift you up. Well, you're saying that I got to give in? Maybe. You're saying that I have to submit? Probably. Are you saying that I've got to give in even if I know I'm right? Maybe. And when the time is right, and you have put yourself in position, God will lift you up. He'll lift you up. And you may think, I've been doing this for years and nothing's happening. I've been giving in for years. I've been humbling myself for years. And nothing's ever happened. My spouse sure hasn't acknowledged it. And maybe that's where you're at. Maybe that's what you're feeling. Maybe you have a hard time, pushing off the feelings of resentment. The resentment of your hopes and dreams and desires never being fulfilled. Or the thought that your dreams will never come to pass. And you struggle with that. You struggle with that resentment. And with that anger maybe even. Like I've had to give up so much. And they've had to give up nothing. That's a tough place to be in. But inevitably, many couples find themselves in that place. But here's the crazy part. Chances are, if you're feeling like your dreams are being neglected and ignored by your spouse, guess what? Chances are your spouse is feeling the same way about his hopes and dreams, or her hopes and dreams. Did you know that? That's usually how it goes. And here's where it gets good. Listen, 1 Peter, he keeps talking, chapter 5, verse 7 says this. Cast all your anxiety on him. Cast all your anxiety on him. What does that mean? First of all, what is he talking about when he means anxiety? Cast all your anxiety on him. Well, what are you anxious about? What keeps you up at night? What do you struggle with? What do you fear? What are you angry about? What are you upset over? What drives your anger and your mood swings? What drives the tension in your relationship? What are you worried about? Maybe it's the fact that you just don't connect. You just don't connect with each other. He just has a different way of doing it and seeing it, and then I have the right way of seeing it and doing it, and it just doesn't connect, and it drives you crazy. Maybe it's anxiety over all these unmet expectations. Maybe you feel he's dumped all of this stuff on you and you cannot keep your head above water. You cannot come through with all of these things. What he expects of you is just, it's too much. No one can live up to those kind of expectations. And you're drowning. And that's the anxiety that you're feeling. You can't live up to the hype. And you're afraid he's either going to walk or he's going to find somebody who can live up to the expectations that you can't. That's what you feel. Or you feel, this is it. And then he's just going to be mad the rest of my life, or she's going to be mad the rest of her life because I can't deliver on what they expect of me. Ultimately, expectations build, and all of these things kettle up. And guess what? What happens when you throw all of this stuff, all of these fears, all of these unmet expectations, all this anger inside you, boiling up in a pressure cooker? What happens eventually? What happens every time? It explodes, doesn't it? It blows up. And you unleash on somebody, whether they deserve it or not, and you let them have it. And ultimately, you give them a piece of your mind. You tell them what you're feeling, and it's usually not in a whisper. So, when Peter says, cast your anxiety, we know what anxiety is. What does it mean by cast? Cast. First thing you think of is, if you're a fisherman, you cast, right? But the word cast is not a passive word, is it? It's not the same as saying place, right? Place your anxiety on him. No, it's not the same as saying even put your anxiety. It's not even the same as saying, hey, give him your anxiety. Why did he say cast? Because cast has a different meaning, doesn't it? Cast is not a gentle word. You notice that? Cast is an aggressive word. It's an aggressive word. Could be violent to cast. I tried to think of some things that kind of would go along the same things, same lines as cast, and I came up with maybe unload or dump, throw. Sometimes you just got to throw stuff. Sometimes you throw stuff at home, and that's not good. I won't ask for a show of hands. But maybe a frying pan or two, an iron. I don't know what flies around your house. Chancleta. I don't know what flies. But sometimes you throw stuff, don't you? Why? Because it's more than you can handle. And I'm over it. So when Peter says, cast your anxiety, what he is saying is, I want you to unload your anger and your feelings and all of that pinned up aggression and all that stuff that is just eating you alive. Dump it, toss it, throw it on God. Don't place it, don't give it to him. That's not what he's talking. That's not what that means. It means just dump it, just throw it. Cast it on God. This got a little crazy. Have you ever done that with God? It's like, I didn't even know we could talk to God that way, right? Don't you get kicked out of church for? Like when I unleash, I may or may not say some words that are not godlike, right? So I don't know. Is God trying to hear that? Like God doesn't know what you think, right? Like what are you trying to hide from God? Like God's in the other room and you're going, let me tidy up before I go in because what's God going to think? God knows. you, better than you know you. And guess what? When you got cut off in traffic and you flipped the guy off, God knew that. God saw you, right? Right? I mean, really. All that stuff you were thinking about that person, you can't hide that from God. So here's the crazy part, right? When Peter says, cast your anxiety on him, God is saying, I'm inviting you to dump on me. Right? Do you get that? I'm inviting you to throw it at me. Just give it to me. Let me have it. It ain't pretty. I know. I made you. I know you. I know what you think. I know what you say when you're in private. You think nobody's listening. I know. God knows. And he invites you to do it anyway. So we get a little bit crazy. It's aggressive, almost violent could be. But God says, before you throw it at your spouse, throw it at me first. Before you unleash hell on somebody else, I want you to dump it on me. Give me your anxiety. Put it on me. I can handle it, God says. Whatever, bring it. I can handle it. God's not going to get offended at what you say. But what if I'm mad at God? Well, tell him. Might as well tell him. He already knows. Right? Tell him. Have you ever told God, I'm mad? In no other words. What about you're disappointed with God, or you thought God would work and he didn't, and you feel ripped off? Tell him. Tell him how you feel. And those kinds of conversations are not quiet conversations, are they? How do we do it then? All right, so I guess I'm going to yell at God for a little bit. But how do we do it? All right, let's make it practical. I'm going to give you 3 things that's going to help you get real talk with God. Right? Number 1, you got to stop praying polite prayers. Stop praying polite prayers. Like we think that, man, that God is in there and I'm feeling like this and I need to go pray, whatever. But if before I go into God's presence, I gotta put on my halo and powder my cheeks and tidy up and then go into God's presence and do it. No. Stop praying polite prayers. Cast your anxiety is not polite. Number 2, stop praying formal prayers. You don't have to rehearse anything. You don't have to know what to say. You don't argue that way, do you? You don't fight in marriage like that and with formal old English. My love, I bidst thou. Deceased. Take it easy. Right, you don't turn into Shakespeare when you're talking. No, stop with the formality. Cast your anxiety is raw. It's not polite. It's not formal. In that moment, when you're desperate, when you're angry, when you're overcome, God wants you at that moment. And the last thing is you got to pray honest prayers. Be honest before God. He knows you. He made you. And he wants you to come to him as you are. In the worst of the worst, he invites you in to dump on him all of your fears, all of your anger, all of your irritation, all of your anxiety. He invites you to give it to him. Raw, uncut, uncensored, explicit. Give it to him. He can handle it. Peter didn't make this up. There's an author, His name is Bob Goff, and he wrote a book some years ago called Love Does. And in this book, he's a former attorney. Phenomenal book. If you can, go pick it up. Love Does by Bob Goff. He explains how he talks about this area of being humble and how to approach people and posture and everything. And as he goes in depositions, he talks about how he used to tell people and consult people that when they go into the deposition room in front of the attorney, opposing attorney, sit at the table and put your hands under the table on your knees with your palms up. And your palms up. There's a reason for that. He says it's impossible to be defensive when you're speaking with your palms open like that. I know all y'all gonna go home and try it now. Just don't do it in the car. And you may be thinking, well, listen, this is weird for me. This is a new concept for me. That's not my background. I'm not comfortable with that. Isn't that sacrilegious anyway? There's got to be some decorum to this. You go to President. God is a holy God. He deserves, Yes, absolutely. But guess what? He is also your loving heavenly Father. And as a Father, He invites you in for you to dump what's going on in your life. He wants you to share with Him. He said, cast your anxiety on me. Maybe you got to change up the way you do it. Maybe you're not familiar with it. You know what? Posture influences focus. Did you know that? So maybe you need to get on your knees for a change when you pray. Maybe the only prayer experience you have is around the table, if that. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe just a quick on the way to work, thank you, whatever. God, give me no traffic in a parking space. Ain't nobody prayed that, right? Yeah, right. You've never been Black Friday shopping. Maybe you got to lock the door and get on your knees. You know what that represents, that posture? Submission. It represents submission. Maybe you need to lock the door, get on your knees, and you need to raise your hands. If you're not used to talking to God that way, you need to focus your posture. Why? Because what is this? What is this? You know what this is? This is the international symbol of little kids wanting up, isn't it? Isn't it? When a little child comes to their mommy or their daddy and they need you, they want you up, they raise their hands. And something happens in your posture, in your focus when you do. Maybe you need to do that. But I'll tell you this. Maybe you need to lock the door, get on your knees, raise your hands, pray out loud. Okay, this just got weird. All right? Got it? I mean, that's where I draw the line, right? But listen, when you're dumping on somebody, that's not a private prayer. You can't do that speaking to yourself, can you? You sure don't do it to your spouse in quiet. It gets loud. And it gets cray. Do it out loud. Yell if you need to. Share what's on your heart. Tell God what's on your mind. It's impossible to be defensive with your palms open. And like I said, Peter did not make this up. He's actually referring to something in the Old Testament. And I want you to hear something. If you don't believe me that this is what God wants from you, if you're skeptical, man, I don't know about this, I should pray, I'm not so. Let me show you what I'm talking about, okay? Go with me to the book of Psalm. There's a guy in the Old Testament who wrote many of the Psalms. His name is David. Eventually became king of Israel. Remember David and Goliath? Killed the giant, whatever. That David, he was quite a character. And he was king. He was a shepherd. He was a warrior. He was also an adulterer, a murderer, and so on and so forth. But at the end of his life, God would say of him, there is a man after God's own heart. And I want you to hear something that David wrote. Listen, go with me to Psalm 55. And we'll read it together. We'll read from verse 12. Let's start in verse 12. It says, if an enemy were insulting me, I could endure it. If a foe were rising against me, I could hide. But it is you, a man like myself, my companion, my close friend. David is being hurt. not by his enemies. Someone he trusted has betrayed him, has done something behind his back and has betrayed David. And it is hurting him. And he's in pain and he's angry. And this is what he writes. This is him speaking to God. My close friend, verse 14, with whom I once enjoyed sweet fellowship at the house of God. We went to church together, for crying out loud. We walked about among the worshipers. Let death take my enemies by surprise. Wait, what? I mean, people that hurt your feelings, but have you ever prayed for God to straight up kill them? Oh, he didn't stop there. Let them go down alive to the realm of the dead, for evil finds lodging among. Can I translate this, if I'm not too offensive? Can I translate this into 21st century English? Let me rephrase what David is saying here. To hell with them. Did you understand that? To hell with them. David just said that to God about someone who betrayed him. Are you getting the picture a little bit? All right, let's keep going. As for me, I call to God, and the Lord saves me. Evening, morning, and noon I cry out in distress, and he hears my voice. He rescues me, unharmed from the battle waged against me, even though many oppose me. God, who is enthroned from of old, who does not change, he will hear them and humble them, because they have no fear of God. My companion attacks his friends. He violates his covenant. His talk is smooth as butter, yet war is in his heart. He's a talker. He can say what you need him to say, but in his heart, he wants to kill you and destroy you. And his words are more smooth than oil, yet they are drawn swords. Cast your cares on the Lord. Sound familiar? Cast. There's that word again. David is not gently placing his concerns at the feet of Jehovah. Do you get that picture? This is not a gentle, polite, formal conversation. This is not a polite prayer. This is an aggressive, angry, hurt prayer that David is speaking out, crying out to his heavenly Father. Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken or be moved. But you, God, will bring down the wicked into the pit of decay. The bloodthirsty and deceitful will not live out half their days. That's pretty much how David ends the prayer. Have you ever prayed like that before? Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy prayer right there. I didn't know we could pray like that. I didn't know anybody could pray to God like that. I feel like God might strike you down with lightning or something if I said something like that to God. David was a man after God's own heart. And those are the prayers he prayed. And there's more. He prayed prayers while he was really depressed. He prayed prayers while he was hurt, while he was joyful. You need to go back and read the Psalms. He got real open and real honest, raw with his Heavenly Father. He told him what was on his mind, even though he probably knew it wasn't right. Do you understand? Like David knew. David was not an immature Christian. David was called, anointed by God. He knew what was right and wrong, but he said what was on his heart anyway, even when he knew he was wrong and what he was thinking was not right. He just let it out. He cast his anxiety on God. God doesn't want polite, God wants you. And he wants you to be real with him. Not because he doesn't know, because you're thinking, well, God already knows me. He knows my thoughts, so why? Why? Because you need to share it with him more than he needs to know it. He already knows it. He wants you to enter into conversation. Yeah, but it's an angry, mad, upset conversation. I'm going to say stuff that I shouldn't say. You mean like David? Yeah, okay, whatever. God knows what's on your heart, and he's inviting you to let it out and dump. He says, before you go to your spouse and you blow off steam and you dump and unleash on him, I want you to bring it to me first. Cast your anxiety on me. Your Father invites you into this kind of conversation, even though you're wrong. Even when I'm misguided, God wants me to do this. Maybe it's more personal than maybe. Yeah, but what if what I have to share, what I have to get off my chest is it's just. I'm over him. I'm over her. Tell God. He can take it. Your spouse probably can't take something like that, though. Not very well, anyway. God can handle it. How about, I wish I had never married him. I wish I had never married her. You ever thought that? Maybe you have. Probably shouldn't say that to your spouse. It won't end well, but God invites you. You need to say it. You need to tell him because it's how you feel. It's what's on your mind. And you need to cast your anxieties on him. I can't take it anymore. I want out. I want out. I want out of my marriage. Tell him. Tell God. Let it all out. Let it all out. Until you have stood before God or knelt before God completely exposed, open, vulnerable, raw. And God cannot begin to pour out his favor on your life and marriage. You got to get honest with him. You got to humble yourself before him first. Tell him what's on your mind. Why? Why would I do that? Why? Why does he want me to? If he wants to invite, okay, why? Tell me why. Let's go back to Peter. Peter tells us why. Why does God want me to have this kind of conversation? Why does God want me to yell and scream? Why does God want me to say these things? Why does he want me to get it off my chest? Why? 1 Peter 5:7 says this in the last part of the verse. It says, because he cares for you. Because he cares for you. And that word cares for, it has a different connotation than just take care of. He cares means he has a deep, passionate love for you. And it matters to him. Did you know that? Maybe you're like, well, God knows. I just don't feel like God cares enough. Why would I tell him? Listen to me very carefully. Listen. You need to hear this. This is very important. If it matters to you, it matters to your Heavenly Father. Let me say it again. If it matters to you, it matters to your Heavenly Father. You don't believe me? I have 3 girls, and I love them more than anything else in this world. But listen to me. My entire universe is pink and princess and all things girly. And I love it. I embrace it. I'm comfortable with it. Leave me alone. But listen to me. There is no earthly reason for me to be able to quote you all the names of the princesses, all the names of the ponies, all of the names of you. I should not. I'm 40 years old. I'm a dude. And why would I know this stuff It doesn't make sense. But you know why I know it? Because my daughters love it. And it matters to them. And they're interested in it. And so it's what interests me too. I got to confess, honestly, not all of the time, as much as others, but what matters to them matters to me. What they're thinking, I want to know. What their anxiety is, I want to know, right? Don't you with your children? If there's something going on in their heart that they're hurting or they're mad at something, you want to know. Why? Because you love them. You love them. You want to care for them. It matters to you. And what matters to you matters to God. Cast your anxiety on him because he cares for you. That means he wants the best for you. That means he wants to show you favor and grace. He cares about you. Not to mention that when it comes to our box, when we take our box of hopes, dreams, desires and give it to our spouse and it becomes expectations, we are giving them an impossible task. It is not humanly possible for another person, let alone a spouse, to fulfill what's in my box. It is not possible. They were not designed to do it. They are not responsible to do it. No, nor are they humanly capable of doing it. We have set on our spouse an impossible task when we give them our box. No human can fulfill that box. Only God can realize your dreams. Only God can give you your desires. Only God can give you what you've hoped for. No one else can. So what do you do with your box? When you humble yourself before God, you open yourself up completely. Completely. That's you giving God your box. To the only one who can fulfill your dreams and hopes and desires. Who's the only one who could do it all along. Yet we live year after year after year in a relationship with unmet expectations because the other person cannot fulfill your expectations. You cannot fulfill theirs. You never meant to. They were never meant to. That's why they owe you nothing. Give your box and all the junk that's in it, good, bad, ugly, give it to the only one who can do anything about it in the first place. Give your box to God. Only he can carry it. Only he can carry it. Give him your expectations. Give him your disappointments. Give him your broken heart. He can handle it. And if you do that, here's what's going to happen. Look out. Because the first amazing thing that God's going to do is not going to be in your spouse. When you do that and put yourself in a position for God to put his favor on your life, the first amazing thing he's going to do is in you. And you're going to start to see things a little bit differently. And as a matter of fact, you're going to go to your box and you're going to look at your box and you're going to see your box differently. Once you give it to God, it changes. You may even rearrange some stuff and switch some stuff out. You may even take stuff and put it somewhere else and not put it back in at all. But I'll tell you this. When both of you put yourselves in a position to where God can put his grace on your marriage and you get humble before God and before each other, here's what you're going to find. You're going to end up finding that many of the hopes that you had in your box are the same. Many of the dreams that you have are the same. And many of the desires that you have are the same. Only God can do that. Only God can do that. No one else. Happy couples know that. Happy couples know that. Give it to Him first. Happy couples know that I owe you everything, but you owe me nothing. Happy couples understand that marriage is a submission competition. Happy couples know that you got to drop the rope first. Right? And happy couples know that sometimes you just got to throw stuff. And you got to dump on your Heavenly Father before you dump on your spouse. Take it to God. Unleash. He can handle it. When you humble yourself before God, you invite Him into your marriage, in your life, and you put yourself in a position where He can pour out His favor on your life and on your marriage. Let's pray together.